right, welcome to the podcast, episode 1. This is a podcast with Daniel and Sam, and we are here to talk about football.
So what more is there to talk about?
What more is there to talk about? We're going to go all the way from the NFL to college, but this show specifically, we're going to go into the NFL, show what's happening today. And so before we dive in, we wanted to do a little intro of who we are. So first off, my name is Daniel Ellender, and I am actually this man's brother-in-law. So we're teaming up. And just a little intro myself. I grew up in North Louisiana. We're here living in the same city together. Finally. And just have an excuse to, at every gathering we talk about football. We'd watch, teams play on Sunday, on Saturday, and what a better way to kick it off by making something happen, have conversations, to talk about it, get some time together,
right,
to hang out. But yeah, I'm Daniel. I own a video production company called Carpe Momentum, where I do videos for businesses, also do wedding work, things like that. And that's me. And so we've got Sam over here who's going to introduce himself.
Yeah, so my name is Sam Abrams. I run an air conditioning company in Baton Rouge. Grew up playing football. Daniel's brother-in-law. Daniel's the beauty of the whole operation, so he's the one that brings all the
brains,
the artsy part of it, and makes sure that the production looks good. But like Daniel said, we've always wanted to do this, or we've wanted to do this as long as we've known each other. We've talked about doing this. I've talked about it in the past with other friends, and it just kind of, we were like, hey, let's just start it. Let's see how it goes. Let's start it. And so y'all are going to work with us through the kinks, the hiccups, the mistakes. But hopefully it'll be good, and hopefully it'll be enjoyable to listen to. So Daniel, quarterback carousel. We see everything going on right now in the NFL. Where do we start?
Yep. So we're going to start with the GOAT himself, Mr. Tom Brady, who just sent some shockwaves for the second time through the league of retiring at 45 years old. And so first off, just want to get your thoughts on the GOAT retiring from the NFL.
So as an avid anti-fan, if you would, of Tom Brady, I've had many seasons come to a screeching halt at the hands of that man. But I do have to say, as long as he's been in the industry, as long as he's been playing football, I think his longevity speaks to just how great he really is. He's won 7 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowl MVPs. He's had, I think I read a stat the other day that he's had 3 different spans in his career where he would have the equivalent of anybody else's Hall of Fame career. So he's been incredible. But with that being said, him retiring, as much as it affects the entire NFL, it really affects the NFC South. And Daniel, you being a Saints fan, how do you think that really affects things?
Yeah, so I guess like a little context, we're just going to show our cards here. I grew up in Louisiana, so I'm a big, first off, LSU fan. I love the Tigers. That's where I went to college.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. We'll get into who this guy roots for, but I'm also a big Saints fan, and so I've followed them since I was really a little kid. They were the Aints. They had the paper bags over their heads, and I was a little kid. I was like, what are they doing? And they're like, yeah, they're not good, son. But I still love them, And so I've been there through the highs and lows, to the Drew Brees era, and to now a new era, which we hadn't seen in a while. And so with your question of Tom Brady retiring, I think it affects a lot of things. I mean,
sure.
For the whole league, backing up from a whole league's perspective, like there's been a generation of great quarterbacks that are now fading away.
Right.
With Tom Brady being at the helm of that. And so now I think it's just going to be weird that he's gone,
Yeah, I definitely think one thing that we'll miss seeing is, Tom Brady had that Tiger vibe to him, right? If he was playing in a game, you never really could count him out. And whenever he pulled ahead, you never really thought that you'd catch up. And even his last year in the league, even at the age that he was, and I think 45, right?
45,
he still played like a top 10 quarterback. He was still a guy you did not want to see on the other side of the line of scrimmage if you were an opposing defense. And so I do think that affects that. I grew up in South Wisconsin for some of my childhood, so I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. And then some point in my childhood, a friend of mine's dad gave me an Alabama hat, and I became an Alabama fan. I did not realize I was moving to Baton Rouge. So all my local Baton Rouge friends, please take it easy on me. But I am an Alabama fan, and I'm always glad to discuss college football when it comes time to discuss college football. So we'll get into that. But as a Packers fan, as much as I am happy to see Tom Brady leave, because many times, whether it was Tom Brady indirectly or directly just putting an end to our season, through whether it was the Packers or me just wanting to see Tom Brady lose and him not losing very much, I am going to miss seeing him play, because it is the sign of the end of a generation of great quarterback play.
Yep. And a little side note on Tom Brady before I go into the NFC South. I saw something today, which another team that you kind of like too, the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. I heard some speak of there's a lot of connections between the Dolphins president, whatever, to get him to come back. I don't think he's coming back again.
No.
But they just said, having those weapons of Waddle, of Tyreek Hill, in the game where Brady could just dump it to these guys, has the pieces around him to win a Super Bowl. But I just want to put that out there. I don't think it's going to happen.
Tom Brady kind of squashed that immediately. I don't know if you saw the tweet that he tweeted right afterward. He said, for those of you that think I'm coming back, you've never adopted a cat for your daughter and know how much time it takes up. And so clearly his hands are full doing what he should be doing at this point in his life, which is taking care of his family and enjoying that time. And so I'm glad to see him leave. I'm going to miss seeing him play. I never thought I'd say that, but now I can say that because he's no longer a threat. So NFC South.
Yes.
Where are we at with the QB carousel in the NFC South, Daniel?
Yep. So I think Tom Brady leaving really leaves a gap for a team to really – it's kind of anybody's game,
It is. Wide open.
And it's only been, I guess, with Drew Brees retiring, it was just kind of Tom in the NFC South, and they won a Super Bowl out of that. They, even got to the playoffs, having a terrible record last year. So – I think if a team in the NFC South gets the right quarterback, they could, of course, even make the playoffs, but make a run if they're able to establish themselves. And so, right now with Tom leaving, that leaves Tampa Bay wide open. Whoever they're going to get, if the backup, if he'll step up.
It's Kyle Trask, I believe, and if you remember, he played for Florida, and he was pretty good at Florida, so he's got an opportunity to step up.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with him. The Falcons, they're still trying to figure it out. They've got Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. They kind of played some back and forth at the end there. So, they haven't really had this franchise guy yet.
Disclaimer, I'm a big Mariota fan. I would love to see him do well. I don't know if he will. I think the script is kind of written, no pun intended, on Marcus Mariota. And I don't think Ridder is all that people hoped he would be. I think that's just coming from a smaller college, performing the way that he did, which was admirable, which was great. But I think when you see him play against this higher caliber competition, you kind of see the holes in his game. And again, he could take a giant leap this year, but I just don't think he will. The QB carousel took a stop at the Saints, at the New Orleans Saints, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. And so we'll save Panthers for the end because we got some breaking news that we're going to drop in. But with the Saints, like I said, hometown team, big news of Derek Carr signing.
Right.
What was it, like a week ago? So
4 years.
Yeah, 4-year deal. I think it's like they didn't say the exact number. I was just looking up, like close to $150 million, which is pretty wild. But all
front
that
pocket money for a guy like you, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're rolling in the dough over here with Carpe Momentum. But back to Derek. I honestly, like looking at the situation, I'm pretty happy about it. We've been rocking. Since Drew left, we've kind of been in shambles trying to figure out what do we do. He's basically carried us for 10 plus years, and so we've had Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, the whole fiasco. Who's going to start? What's going to happen? I think Derek really provides some experience, some stability, and the dude still got it, man. I'm going to pull something up, but from the skills competition,
sure.
Maybe he was throwing some shade at the Raiders. There was a skill competition at the Pro Bowl in Las Vegas, and he put out one of the great, the best scores that's ever been recorded in a skills competition on his home turf. And there's a quote that someone just said, Derek, you've thrown touchdown passes in Vegas before. You've been on fire. have you ever been that hot in Las Vegas? And Carr responded, not that hot. That's probably why I'm going somewhere else. The man was ready to make a statement, leave, and the Saints picked him up. And I think he's going to be, juiced up to really prove himself, to be in a new city. And I think the Saints, just being an open, welcoming arms, are going to welcome the guy in. It sounds like they recruited Michael Thomas and I forgot who else it was, but and Tyrann Mathieu, to really try to get him on the squad. And it sounds like they did a good job, and Derek's coming. So I'm excited. He's got a good arm. If we can get some guys healthy like Michael Thomas, we've got some young guys that we're putting pieces around to hopefully do well. So I'm excited about the move.
So I'll say this: I'm a big Derek Carr fan. I've always liked Derek Carr. He's always been that kind of quarterback that he's not Hollywood, right? He seems like a grinder. He
Looks like an average dude.
Yeah, like an average dude, like your
receding
blue collar
hairline.
version, right? I don't know anything about a receding hairline, and so, but he seems like your good blue collar quarterback. I'll say this: here's a couple of stats for you, right? So Carr last year, and keep in mind, he had a new coach, new offensive coordinator, brand new scheme. He was injured for part of the year, but he also had Devontae Adams, and as a Packers fan, I'll tell you. That's the number one receiver in the league. And I get choked up saying that because of how horrible our receivers were last year outside of Christian Watson. But this was his stat line last year. And for listeners, I didn't talk to Daniel about this before because I wanted to get his honest reaction to this. So if you had to pick between these two quarterbacks to play for your team, who would it be? Stat line number one is a 60.8% completion percentage. 3,522 yards of passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions versus a 66% completion percentage, 3,969 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Stat line 1 or stat line 2?
It's like 2 all day.
Yeah. 2 was the combined passing stats of Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill. So you had 2 QBs and a glorified tight end out past Derek Carr. I say that I still like the Derek Carr signing.
Yep.
I don't think that's last year's very telling of the kind of quarterback that he is. If you look back a few years ago, he was in the MVP conversation. He's had several over 4,000 yard seasons. He's a prolific passer in my opinion. I think he's got really good arm talent. So I think the Derek Carr signing is an upgrade, obviously, from Andy Dalton. Yeah. You got to compare apples to apples. The Raiders had all new coaching. They did not have a very good offensive line. They had great weapons surrounding them. They had Darren Waller. They had Devontae Adams. They had Hunter Renfrow, who also looks like he could work at H&R Block. So they had some really good weapons around him. But nonetheless, I do think I don't necessarily blame last year's lack of stats on Derek Carr because I think the situation surrounding him wasn't the greatest. And so I do think Derek Carr is going to be an asset.
Yeah, I'm excited. And that kind of bleeds into the last team, the NFC South, that we're going to cover. And we're speaking on this too. We're kind of in the NFC. We're in the South. That's why we're taking some more time on this division.
But this bleeds over to mine, right? So this bleeds over to the NFC North. What you're about to say. So this matters for both divisions.
Exactly. But before that, we did have some breaking news today. Before we turn on this podcast, that the Chicago Bears traded the first overall pick to the Carolina Panthers, and so what happened was, Panthers got the first overall pick from the Bears. The Bears received DJ Moore and 4 draft picks, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders. Honestly, I'm on the Bears' side because they actually received DJ Moore. They also received the 9th pick, which was the Panthers' original pick, the 9th pick, the 61st pick, and then 2 second rounds.
They actually received a first-round pick in 2024 and a second-round pick in 2025. So they received 2 first-round picks, 1 second-round pick, and then I believe 61 would be a 3rd or 4th round pick. So they did even better than what we thought.
Yeah, and so So, yeah, I mean, I know both sides are happy, but that leaves going to the NFC South, the Panthers, to pick up a QB. And so who's it going to be? Is it going to be your boy Bryce Young, or is it going to be C.J. Stroud? There's a couple options.
So I think either one that they go with, C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, I think are both going to be very good quarterbacks in their own right. I think they're both they both come from conferences that play really competitive football. So I think they're both going to be really good. I'll say this: I don't necessarily like the Bears trade. I'm not a big Justin Fields fan. That has nothing to do with my Green Bay bias.
They're doubling down on him.
I just don't think he's all that they're hoping he would be. Mainly from the standpoint of he's not a very good passer, and he's playing quarterback. He's not playing running back. And the comparisons can be made to Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson. Those are two different. Lamar is a prolific runner, right? He is really, really good on the ground. Justin Fields is above average. He's not, I wouldn't say prolific. And this is coming from a guy that's had his defense torched by Fields. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that Fields is prolific. The other thing is I think the Bears, I think the other problem with the Bears is they just haven't shown that they have what it takes to groom those weapons that they have. And over the years, they've had weapons. I mean, they had Kevin White a few years ago, who was supposed to be one of the most athletic receivers to ever come out of the combine and be drafted and all that, and he never panned out to be anything as far as in the NFL. And so they don't have a very good grooming system as far as building up weapons. And because of that, I think their quarterbacks struggle. They actually haven't had. I saw a stat. They haven't had an All-Pro first or second team quarterback in over 2 decades on that team. And so
this is a big move. Like,
huge.
This is a defining moment. You trade away your first pick, which could be, the next franchise quarterback.
Right.
You're putting all your eggs in Justin Fields' basket, trying to get pieces around him. But you're right. If you don't have the QB, if it doesn't pan out, it's all for naught.
So I'm skipping ahead a little bit with this statement, and we won't cover it yet. But I do want to bring up Jordan Love real quick, right?
Okay.
So Jordan Love had I think last year was one time, maybe twice, that he threw over 300 yards in a game. The Bears haven't had a single time. And that goes to show you, like, in one game, and I think it was against the Eagles, Fields went for over 300 yards or over 250 yards, whatever the stat was. Jordan Love was significantly better than any game Fields has had as a Bears quarterback this year or last year. And so that just goes to show you that I don't think, and the Packers, outside of Aaron Jones, really did not have, and Christian Watson turned up toward the end of the year, but outside of those two, I'd say they didn't have any weapons that were better than what the Bears had.
Yeah. And so going to that, of the Bears, the Panthers happen, you brought up a name we're going to kind of transition to, comparing Fields to Lamar Jackson. There's also some recent news of Lamar Jackson's status. It's kind of been all up in the air during the offseason of, is he going to resign? Are they going to tag him? Kind of give us a lowdown of, like, what happened, what's going on with Lamar Jackson, and kind of what are you kind of projecting is going to happen for this next season for him?
So Tuesday, before the 4 p.m. deadline, the Baltimore Ravens put the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson. What that means is any team has the ability to sign Lamar Jackson. Now, in turn, the Ravens would get, I believe it's 2 first-round picks and an opportunity to match that offer, but any team could openly discuss a contract with Lamar Jackson. The big hiccup on Lamar Jackson right now, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts, he's wanting a fully guaranteed contract. He's, and the way a lot of contracts are is a guy might sign for $150 million, but only have $85 million, in guaranteed money. He's wanting fully guaranteed. I believe Deshaun Watson is the only other quarterback that ever got a fully guaranteed. And I tell you, I think Cleveland's sweating a little bit right now on if they made the right decision. Now, time will tell with Deshaun Watson, but a lot of teams throughout the league are having their doubts about offering a fully guaranteed. So, what's your thoughts on Lamar Jackson? Do you think he's worth that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you look at his what he's racked up, I mean, how many MVPs does he have?
One.
He has one MVP. I think he's a game changer, per se. I think, okay, look, if you paired Lamar Jackson with the defense that they used to have,
Sure.
they'd be unstoppable.
Sure.
But they just haven't put all the pieces together. Every single year with Lamar Jackson, their running game, they've had just running back injuries, running back
Sure.
trouble, so he's literally carried the team on his back. I mean, I think if they get the right pieces around him, I think securing a elite talent like Lamar Jackson could carry a team to the Super Bowl.
Sure, I agree. I think he's got aspects of his game that are elite. I'll say this: Lamar Jackson's only had 1 year, only one season, with over 3,000 passing yards. I think that's the hiccup here, right? Is not so much that he's not elite in a certain regard. They're paying him again. It's the same thing with Justin Fields. They're paying him to play quarterback, and I think they're just hesitant to offer a fully guaranteed contract to a guy that plays the game in such a physical manner because he runs so much. He's injury prone. And we saw that this year. He didn't finish the year this year. He didn't finish the year last year. Both years he got injured, and so I will say I think Lamar Jackson is rare. I think he's doing something that that not many quarterbacks have been able to do as far as how he runs the ball. I believe he beat Michael Vick's record on single season rush yards. And so he's prolific, but I could definitely see why they would be hesitant to give him that offer. With that being said, so he's out there. He signed he's got this non-exclusive tag. How does that affect the market around him? And let me start off by saying the Dolphins, who everyone thought would be the first ones in line for a quarterback because of the injuries to Tua. You know how I feel about Tua.
Yep.
I love Tua. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he took a giant leap last year from the prior year. However, he has had, I think, 3 concussions in 1 year. The Dolphins have picked up their 5th-year option, and they have come out and said that they have no interest in pursuing Lamar Jackson. Are there any other teams you think that would pursue that, or do you think that fully guaranteed contract is going to hinder anyone from taking a chance on Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like teams with openings who would want to take a shot at him. Because I'm trying to think, if he didn't sign, if he didn't get the full contract, where would he go?
Yeah.
Like who would pay the price to get that? And I'm thinking of a team like the Dolphins who are trying to make a Super Bowl run. You have the 49ers who don't really have a quarterback situation, but it looks like they don't need the star player to go all the way.
No, they don't. I mean, think about how good they did last year. If they'd have an offensive line, now granted, they have Trent Williams, who many believe is the number 1 player in the league overall.
Trent Williams?
He's a left tackle for them.
Okay.
Phenomenal left tackle. As a former left tackle, I could only aspire to be Trent Williams. That is a peak physique of man. And so Trent Williams, outside of him, they really have had trouble protecting the quarterback. With that being said, I think that has to do with why they've had so much shortcomings. Even though they've made it to the NFC Championship or to the late rounds of the playoffs, they haven't been able to keep a quarterback upright, which has led to their seasons coming short. So you think of somebody like the 49ers, that's a great point to bring up because Lamar Jackson doesn't need a top 5 offensive line. Yeah. He's got the wheels to avoid the pressure, and so I think the biggest thing that people are getting confused, and when I say people, I mean the NFL owners, right? Owners of these teams that don't want to offer a fully guaranteed contract. I'm pretty sure more money has gone toward. Sorry, my cat is interrupting our podcast. He just wants to be a part of it.
This is going to take us to our sponsor, Petco.
Yeah, right. We're not sponsored by Petco. Hey, Fishy. So, Daniel, outside of the teams that we spoke about, right, the 49ers, the Dolphins, are there any other teams that you see that maybe could be vying for Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, you think of teams pushing for the Super Bowl year after year. I mean, I got to bring up your boys, the Packers, man. Who knows? Aaron Rodgers has been there. There's whispers of a vacancy. Maybe he's going somewhere else, and I'd love, who knows if Lamar would kind of fill that spot. But first, I'd love for you to talk about what's happening with Aaron Rodgers. Give us the lowdown. You're the insider. Fill us in. Is he leaving? Is he staying? And what's happening?
So I'll start off by saying this because I think this has to do exponentially with why we're even having this discussion. The Packers are not interested in Lamar Jackson. Jordan Love has shown enough on tape to show that he's a starting caliber quarterback. They're not going to take a risk on a Lamar Jackson fitting into that system in a small market like Green Bay to bring him in to replace a guy that they believe is already proven. With that being said, Aaron Rodgers, right? My first Packers jersey that wasn't a Brett Favre jersey was an Aaron Rodgers jersey. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. I appreciate him. I will not be one of those guys that burns his jersey. I'll probably put out this corny thing where it's the jersey on a fireplace and the note says "Thank you." I'll be that guy because I think he's done a lot for Green Bay. I mean, you think about it. We've gone through 2 generations of quarterbacks that have been Hall of Fame caliber because of Aaron Rodgers. So I'll start off with saying that. I will say I'm not a fan of his antics lately, but again, we all have our tendencies. I do think Aaron Rodgers is getting traded. I think he's either going to retire or he's getting traded at this point.
Wow. Predictions on the trade.
Well, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a no trade clause in his contract. That was taken out to protect the Packers. That was kind of the sign of goodwill that Aaron Rodgers gave them to protect them from being stuck with a quarterback that didn't want to be there. I think right now everything that you hear throughout the league from Schefter and from different people is it's the Jets. It's the Jets quarterback to get.
Wow.
At this point, the only thing that can keep him from going to the Jets are the Jets. If they're not willing to pay for it, if they're not willing to put up the trade capital, there's some talks about they want the Packers to eat some of the cap hit that Rodgers is going to deal out. I think at this point, if I'm the Packers, I'm holding my ground. I'm standing my ground, and I'm a hold, and I'm going to tell them no. If you want him, you're taking all of him, taking his complete cap hit, and you're giving me 2 first-round picks or a player and a first-round pick or 2 players. But I'm getting something for him because they won. They didn't sign Derek Carr because they wanted to wait for Aaron Rodgers. That was not rumor. That was well-known fact that's why they didn't sign him. So I do think that he's going to be in the Jets. We could hear something as soon as this weekend. I believe this weekend is the deadline. I think the non-tampering goes into effect early next week, and so I do think that he's going to be he's no longer going to be a Packers quarterback, and I will cry on the next podcast
Hey, not ashamed.
about it. But I do think, as far as the Packers are concerned, I think this is the right move. I think it's time to move on. I think when you look at the Packers moving on from Favre to Rodgers, it's almost uncanny how similar it was.
Wow.
Rodgers went out, I believe it was against the Cowboys, and just showed out and gave the Packers enough of faith to believe he can take over for Favre, for a Hall of Fame quarterback. And then he got traded. Who did he get traded to, Daniel?
Who?
The Jets.
Oh, shoot. I was thinking of the Vikings.
No,
but he went to the
to the
Jets.
Vikings later on his revenge tour.
What?
But he went to the Jets, and so
That's
that goes
right.
to show you just how similar these situations are. But I have faith in Jordan Love, what I've seen so far, and I think he's gonna do good. I do think Rodgers is that kind of guy. He's got the moxie where he's gonna go somewhere and he's gonna show out.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked
yeah.
if he wins his 4th MVP next year. 4th. I think it's the 4th or 5th.
That'd be
I can't even
wild.
remember
That'd
which
be
one he's
wild.
on. But I wouldn't be surprised, and I do think he makes the Jets a Super Bowl contender. When you look at the Jets, they have Sauce Gardner. They have really good weapons on the offensive side. I believe they had the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year last year.
Okay.
They have Quentin Williams on the defensive line. They have Sauce Gardner playing cornerback. They have some veterans like C.J. Mosley playing linebacker, and they have some really, really good players on offense. They have the receiver. His name's slipping my mind right now, but they have the running back Breece Hall, and that I think he came out of Iowa State. Who he's explosive. He's a very similar back to Aaron Jones. So I think that I can see Rodgers going there and succeeding right away. I think Robert Saleh is a good head coach, and I think he can succeed there right away. So right now, I think it's going to be the Jets. If it is the Jets, you'll hear about it this next podcast. because we'll talk about what that means for the Packers going forward, and what that means for the QB carousel. Probably talk about some who we think is going to go first, and who, the subsequent quarterbacks that are going to go next time. But it's getting interesting, and as it gets closer to the league starting, I do think we're going to see that QB carousel moving faster and faster,
Yeah.
and being more unpredictable.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this pod up as we covered the news and the QB carousel from the GOAT all the way to Aaron Rodgers, one of the last remaining kind of veteran QBs kind of
We're
out
going to be
there.
talking about veterans being Matthew Stafford, and I remember when he came into the league.
Gosh, crazy. But yeah, that wraps it up for the episode number 1 for our podcast, and we're going to get the branding down. We're figuring out our name. We're going to hone in. But we know overall that we're here to talk about football, whether that be professional. We really love college as well.
Love college
and we've
football.
got the LSU Bama dynamic, which will be fun and
It'll
exciting.
be fun. We'll bring some guests on. We'll make it worth everyone's
Yeah.
listen. But we hope that you tune back in to listen to our next episode. Like Daniel said, just bear with us as we get some branding rolled out, and we work on things. The important thing for us was to get started. So thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again.
Blue Omaha, ready, break.
What was Blue Omaha?